you had the checklist, right? Where it lets you know you wasn't perfect. But in the Bible it said, hey, right, some guys were striving to be perfect. And they went up there and they was able to do that or they wasn't. So it was like, all right, based upon that, people were around you at different levels of awareness. When you was at some like, on some trader stuff, people was around you going, hey, you could be a trader. And then when you was on some like being bad stuff, people was around you you're like, hey, you could be bad. When you was on some like, oh, I don't like the 8 thing, people were like, hey, you can sit there and go with the 6 versus 8, right? And then like at some point you was chosen or you called out to God because you was over it, you went to hell and all this other stuff, and you're like, I'm trying to get out of jail. So what do I need to do? It's like, oh, glad you asked. Pray to the Creator, right? And like, oh no, no. What do you mean by that? Oh, you mean the person? Got you, God, right? And it became like one of these things where like you started to read the Bible in prison, in jail, and all this. You went through your trials and tribulations of being homeless and all that, or feeling like you were, and you still pretty to really go through anything. You got chosen. So it's like, all right, right? Because I know how you get your initiation in the game. You got the Jesus game, right? So like, and next thing you know, boom, pow. You popped up on 10, 11, whether you was gay or straight, right? 11 being straight, 10 being gay, right? You popped up, and it became one of these things where now you had to sit there and appear perfect so that they can use you on a mission all over again. So based upon who they came around, it's kind of like the Disclosure Day movie, where he could use her eyes and go through the eyes, and that's the mission. Where it's like, just look at them for me. You don't need to do nothing else, and you became a child of God. God's. Right? You just stand next to them and open up your heart, right? So they can sit there and go into your heart and connect it to somebody else's and drain them. Right? Like it became one of these things where you started to see people differently based upon their actions around you, right? And you started knowing versus not, you know? And and you have to be aware of that, right? So at that level, you got 10, 11, where you with the guys, and they were putting people on missions, you know what I mean? And it was up to you to sit there and figure it out that was around you. And then they started to leave, or they started to stay. But they made it up to that level of education. On the 6A level, 6 is, they got you working for cash, working for money, blah, 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 da, 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 doing stuff for stuff, trying to get cars, stealing it just so you can say you really didn't steal it, right? Whereas on a 10, 11 level is where it's going, they just provide it. Right? They go, he shall provide. Right? And, people are like learning biblical stuff and stuff like that in certain terms that they can use, and certain calls that they can make, and certain words that they can use. I'm saying? But everything's provided. So they get an apartment, they get all this other stuff, and they just ask for it in the air. Right? Or it's something they gotta go work for it with a trick. I mean, make money, they don't make cash.